Hi, before this episode starts, I just wanted to let listeners know that there is a slight technical glitch. This is because we were using new microphones and basically we hadn't learnt the setup properly. It shouldn't affect your enjoyment and we will endeavour to fix this in future episodes. Happy listening.
Have you ever felt a strange presence you can't explain? Have you noticed your pet staring into the darkness at something you can't see?
Welcome to Spirit Hounds, the podcast that combines our two passions, the paranormal and all things canine.
I'm Nicky, Gardiner, an author with a keen interest in the paranormal.
I'm Davina, a professional dog trainer and instructor.
And we are joined by our curious miniature dachshund, Rosie.
Join us as we explore the fascinating world of ghostly encounters, spooky legends from around the globe, as well as real-life dog training tips and techniques.
Hello and welcome to Spirit Hounds, episode 3, and a happy new year to all our listeners. On today's episode, we are going to talk about battlefield ghosts. We also have a listener story been sent in to us, and I believe we have some stories about ghost dogs.
Yes, that's right. I've got a couple of stories about some legendary black dogs around England, or spectral hounds as they're also known as. And then on the dog training section of the show, we're going to be talking about impulse control. And one of the items that we use to help implement some of those techniques is called a flirt pole.
Okay. So before we get into the show proper, we thought we'd share a little sort of mini update of something that happened at ours just over Christmas, really, wasn't it? We basically had a friend of ours over who's also a neighbour called Zena. And when she was over, we decided we'd show her one of the devices because she's quite into all the ghost hunting and paranormal stuff.
Yes, so we got the Flux 2 device out and the little Roman artifact that we've got, which is called
It is a belt terminal.
the belt terminal, yeah. We got that out, the Flux 2 device, set it up. Nicky also turned on an app. He's got like an Ovilus app called the
Ghost tube.
Ghost Tube app and had all that running. And we just started asking questions.
And we'd had a lot more activity than we did previously. Xena sort of theorised it might be because there were more people present. Some people believe spirits and entities can feed off of energy, so maybe the more people, the more active it was. Because we did seem to get a lot of responses on all the devices.
Yeah, we did. And the responses we got on the Flux 2 device, whether it was showing green for yes or red for no, seemed to correspond with words coming through on the Ovilus app.
Yeah, and we did even have at one point the Ghost Tube app saying come closer. So I got up and I actually went and sat right in front of the artifact and the other device.
Flux 2.
The Flux 2, that's the one I always forget. And I was sitting there less than 20 seconds, I think.
Yeah.
And it went get back straight away, like I'd come too close. So I did that. We were going to actually record it, but it didn't want me to. Basically, we kept going red, didn't want to know. It was only when we put the camera away again that the activity started again, which was quite bizarre, really.
Yeah, another strange thing was we had the fire on, our imitation fire.
Electric fire.
We had the electric fire on, but we didn't have the actual heat on. We just had the flame effect going. And it did actually say on the app to turn the flames off or flame off, something like that, which was quite strange. And we thought maybe that might have been something quite triggering to whoever it was we were talking to.
Yeah, and it did also keep asking for ritual, which is a bit kind of...
Yeah, it kept saying ritual. I don't know
which
what
seemed
kind
a
of
bit
ritual.
concerning to us.
So now we're scratching our heads wondering whether we were talking to someone who was Roman, who actually owned the item, or even somebody else who had owned the item afterwards, and we were talking to someone else who was attached to the item. We're not quite sure what was going on there.
It is always that one item. We don't really believe necessarily there's anything actually within our house that's ghostly as such, but that one item is always the thing that everything goes back to.
Yeah, it'd be good one day to try and set up a camera. Now I said it out loud, and then it won't interact next time,
No,
will
probably
it?
not.
But it would be good to be able to set up some kind of camera setup and record it and do another session and see if we capture anything, and then we can share it with everyone.
Yeah, I mean, Xena, bless her, looked like she was going to disappear into her shirt, didn't she? She's pulling it up as we were getting all these answers, like hiding her face more and more.
It was a bit unnerving. I wasn't scared, but it was a bit unnerving to suddenly have this item interacting with you.
Yeah, I don't think Xena wanted it to follow her home. I think that's what it was. She didn't want it going home with her.
No, she did make it clear, you stay here, I'm going home now.
Yeah, so it was another interesting one.
Yeah, we'll try and keep updating on this. It's very strange because we have several different artifacts. We discussed it in a previous episode, several artifacts from history, but that seems to be the only item that we have any conversation with whenever we set up
And
the
it does seem one
devices.
of the slightly less personal ones. We've even got like a Roman ring and things like that, which I would always think would be a more personal item.
Yeah, but nothing from that.
But no, it's just this belt terminal.
Yeah, it's very strange.
It is very strange. But we'll see. We'll see what happens next because we've got a few other things to try out as well, haven't we?
Yeah, there's another device that Nicky got for Christmas, which is a spirit box, and it comes also with blindfold and headphones. And essentially, what you do is play the ghost box, and it skips through FM or AM radio stations at a very fast frequency. And you're supposedly supposed to be able to hear spirits coming through, but you have the blindfold on, so you're taking away one of your senses while you're listening to this.
And you do the Estes method, which basically means you cover your ears with headphones, wear a blindfold, so you are completely unaware of what people are saying around you. They can ask questions, and you're meant to listen for the answers, not knowing what the questions were.
Yeah, exactly. So if we set up one time using that device along with the Flux 2, maybe see if we can record it, put the artifact out, put it all together, ask some questions and see what comes through. And then maybe we can post it up so people can see if anything happens again.
The thing I find frustrating is sometimes you do seem to get responses where everything adds up, like 2 or more of the devices will activate and they will corroborate. So you might get a yes through one, I can't remember, the Flux 2, and you also get something through on, say, the Ghost Tube app at the same time. So they'll both be confirming what they're saying. And you kind of think, oh, that's good. But then other times you just get random words or something randomly going off. And I don't understand why that would be. Rosie actually slept through this whole encounter we had using the devices when Xena was over as well.
Yeah, she did. She didn't really react to anything at all. So some spirit hunter she was.
I know. Edgehill, October 1642. King Charles had around 11,000 foot soldiers, 3,000 cavalry and 1,000 dragoons. His opponents, the parliamentarians, also had roughly the same size, if not slightly larger. The battle was largely inconclusive, but left 1,000 dead, another 3,000 wounded, who would probably have suffered a lingering death due to infection and disease. The fate of those men who had been forced to fight, often poorly equipped, were left where they fell, looted for money, clothes, and all their earthly possessions pilfered, their naked and butchered bodies left in the mud by both sides as they withdrew to assess their losses and regroup. The First English Civil War was a truly bloody affair. In a few short years, 4% of the population of England would die from war-related causes, along with 6% of Scots, and a massive 41% of the Irish. That's some 200,000 souls in total. But for the souls of Edgehill, the story does not end there. Around Christmas that year, shepherds walking across the field reported hearing the sounds of battle, clashing swords, screams of men, the sounds of horses, and the moans of the dying. When they looked up, the herders saw the ghosts of the dead men refighting the Battle of Edgehill in the night sky. The shepherds, terrified by what they saw, contacted a local priest, who it is said to have also seen the phantoms at battle. In fact, so many people saw it, the locals published a pamphlet about it in 1643. So many people saw the ghostly conflict that it was even entered into public records. When King Charles heard about the dead men continuing to fight for and against his rule in the afterlife, he sent a royal commission to investigate. Not only did the commission see the apparitions, they even claimed to recognise some of the ghosts, including Sir Edmund Verney, the King's standard bearer. After 3 months of this battle playing out nightly, the locals finally gave the fallen troops a Christian burial. When this was done, fighting stopped, although some still claimed to hear the fighting on some dark and foreboding nights. So Davina, what do you think of that one?
Have there been any other sightings since then?
Well, occasionally people supposedly hear the battle.
Wow, that's really quite spooky. I mean, to see a ghost is one thing, but to hear the battle as well, to hear the clangings of swords and screams and shouts and things like that, that's quite a panoramic experience, isn't it?
I find it amazing as well that they could actually recognise individual within the battle, like the standard bearer. I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah, so that much detail. So it's not just a grey,
No.
misty type ghost. This is full colour.
Yeah, but it says they looked up and saw them in the sky. So it's like they weren't even on the ground.
So they weren't even on the ground.
No, that's the bit that I find interesting.
Wow, that's spooky. That's pretty weird.
And it is in the actual public record as a battle as well, because it was witnessed by so many people.
Yeah, I suppose if the locals saw it, and a priest saw it as well, so it's someone whose word you're going to rely on, really, really, aren't you? He's not going to make this stuff up.
Really? All priests are good.
Well, he would have been a person to believe in the local community, wouldn't he? He's like a pillar of the community, and people would listen to what he had to say. Why would he make things up like that?
I'm not really sure where Christianity and things stood on ghosts at that period. Another such battle that seems to echo down the ages with continued fighting is that of Culloden. The battle originally was said to be over in less than an hour, leaving nearly 1,500 Jacobite soldiers dead. According to some locals, the battle still rages on, gunfire, swords and crying being heard across the empty moors, particularly on the anniversary of the battle. As well as these phantom sounds, the figure of a lone Jacobite soldier reportedly roams the battlefield, dressed in his clan's tartan, muttering "defeated" over and over again as he goes. Nearby, in the house that Bonnie Prince Charlie, leader of the Jacobite rebellion, slept in the night before the battle, it is said that his spectre still lingers there, wearing his full Highland dress, waiting for the battle to end. If you are nearby, it was April the 16th, 1746, if you want to visit the site to see if you can witness this phenomenon yourself. What do you think of this one? It's very similar to the previous one.
It is similar, isn't it? I have a lot of stories about battle ghosts,
Well,
the spirits of ghosts from battles.
we've got a few more going on after
Yeah.
this, but
So-
particularly it seems the sounds is what people seem to really pick up on. Like
So
the
they're
clash of
hearing it
swords.
first and then seeing something.
Possibly. It just seems that sounds seem to be the thing that it seemed to echo on,
Okay, so someone saw the ghost of Bonnie Prince Charlie as well in the
supposedly.
place. Yeah, I've not been there, but it'd be interesting if anyone else has been and have witnessed anything there. That would be a good place to investigate. really.
April the 16th, it's coming up.
So it's always on that anniversary. is
Apparently,
it?
yeah.
Okay.
If anyone's in the area, maybe go and check it out.
Yeah, that'd be a good one to investigate, wouldn't it, one day? We have to put that on the to-do list.
I believe the house that's nearby, and I might be wrong in this, is actually a hotel now as well.
Oh, really?
So you could actually book up to go and see potentially Bonnie Prince Charlie's ghost.
It'd be quite busy around April
Yeah, it
time.
might be. Yeah,
Oh,
maybe.
But I suppose maybe you could book a few years in advance to go there.
Yeah, maybe. The next one, for our American friends, is the Battle of Gettysburg. It was the largest battle in North America. It has many, many ghost stories. The battle lasted from the 1st until the 3rd of July, 1863. By the end of the conflict, 50,000 soldiers were either killed, wounded or missing. Visitors, of which there are many, an estimated 1 million a year, are said to hear the sounds of battle, still including musket fire, cannon fire, as well as marching drum beats. It was a decisive victory for the Union forces and would see the decline of the Confederacy. One soldier wrote of the aftermath. Burial parties were sent out, and those who could get away from their commands went out to view the scene of carnage. And surely it was a scene never to be forgotten. Upon the open fields, like sheaves bound by the reaper, in crevices of the rocks, behind fences, trees and buildings, in thickets where they had crept for safety only to die in agony, by streams or walls or hedges, wherever the battle had raged, or their waking steps could carry them, lay the dead. Is it any wonder that Gettysburg has so many restless spirits? One author, Mark Nesbitt, believes that the site may have been a battlefield previously, suggesting that two Native American tribes had territories nearby, and believes that they would have clashed on this land previously. The first ghost story that Nesbitt found, specifically tied to the battle, happened on the night of July the 1st and into the early hours of July the 2nd, 1863. During that night, as the Union Army's 5th Corps marched into Gettysburg, they spotted a mysterious horseman in the darkness ahead. Nesbitt explains, the figure would appear and then disappear, but it was obvious from their accounts he was wearing a uniform from the Revolutionary War. Many believed he was the ghost of George Washington. Devil's Den, a rocky outcrop on the battlefield where the Confederate sharpshooters were said to snipe at their enemy, is said to have unusual activity. Screams and gunfire are heard from the rocks. Visitors' cameras frequently malfunction and strange unseen figures appear in photographs. Others claim to see a dishevelled man dressed in ragged clothing. Confederate soldiers usually had their own clothing to fight in, making their appearance very non-conforming, wearing no real uniform. This apparition is said to tell people, "What you're looking for is over there," before suddenly vanishing. Triangular Field, located northwest of Devil's Den, is also notorious for ghostly activity. Visitors report shadowy figures crossing the field, feelings of being touched, and an unsettling presence around them. Similar phenomenon have been reported at Little Round Top, where Colonel Joshua Chamberlain's 20th Maine Regiment secured a crucial Union victory. Many claim to see a soldier in uniform, hear muskets fire, or encounter figures from the past who vanish without a trace. Just outside the battle lines, Hospital Woods served as a temporary field hospital. Mark Nesbitt recalled speaking to a woman who sensed two men approaching her in the woods. She later identified them as soldiers from the 42nd Mississippi Regiment, even providing their names and company details. Nesbitt later confirmed that these soldiers had been wounded nearby and treated at the same spot. To come up with two names, a unit number, and the fact these men were treated here is almost impossible, he remarked. Almost every old building in Gettysburg has its own haunted story, but a few places stand out, including the Jenny Wade house. Jenny Wade, 20, was the only civilian killed during the battle, after being struck by a stray bullet whilst baking bread in her sister's kitchen. Her death was an unfortunate accident, but it left its lasting mark on the house. Visitors and staff report doors that open and close on their own, disembodied voices, and the feeling of being watched. Some believe Jenny's spirit still lingers, trapped in the place where she met her ultimate demise. There are many other haunted spots in Gettysburg, and as such it may be another topic we revisit in the future.
So there's a lot of ghost stories around Gettysburg.
Yeah, it seems to be. And have you noticed with each battle, as we've gone through the ages, the numbers of the dead have gone up for each battle?
Yeah. I don't know much about Gettysburg. We watched a few things about it. I'm not very au fait with American Civil War history, but I do know, I think it involved the largest number of casualties for the entire war at that battle, that particular battle.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of unrest.
It was the big turning point, basically, yeah.
Was it? Okay. And if it was used previously, years before, as a fighting ground as well, there's a lot of bloodshed there.
Yeah, and I mean, the way mankind has found new ways to kill more people in a shorter time is amazing, isn't it, really?
Oh, yeah, it's amazing.
So the next one is going to be World War One. In the memoirs of Canadian soldier Private Will R. Bird, who published his report on the First World War in 1930s under the title And We Go On, later to be edited and republished as Ghosts Have Warm Hands in the 1960s, he said, and this is a quote, "We left the top of the ridge and went to Vimy village, relieving the Canadian mounted rifles there and doing working parties digging trenches near the front line. I came back alone the first night, and two of the new men asked me to go with them to shelter that they had made in the railway embankment. It was a snug bivvy and there was plenty of room for the three of us. We were soon asleep, but about midnight I was awakened by a tug at my arm. I looked up quickly, throwing back my ground sheet, and there stood Steve. I could see him plainly, see the mud on his puttees and knees. He jerked a thumb towards the ruined houses and motioned for me to go with him. I did not speak. I thought that if I could do exactly as he said and not wake the others, perhaps he would actually speak to me. He started to walk away as I gathered my equipment and rifle and greatcoat, and when I hurried he simply faded from view. I was disappointed. For at least 10 minutes I stood by a path, waiting, watching, listening, hoping he might speak or whisper. Nothing happened. I grew cold, so I kept on to the nearest ruin and there lay on the rough earth floor and went to sleep. In the morning I heard fellows talking about a big shell that had killed two men. I jumped up and looked. They were digging from the shelter I had left the mangled bodies of the two lads who had invited me to join them. The shell had exploded just above their heads. All that day I thought of how I'd been saved, and I resolved that if I ever again saw Steve I would do exactly as he motioned. He saved my life." So what do you think of that World War One story then?
Quite a tragic story. It's a nice story, though. Didn't Will hear the shell go off where he was?
I'd imagine he'd got used to sleeping under those sort of conditions with shells going off left, right and centre because it's World War One.
So Steve was his brother, yeah?
He was his older brother. The bit I didn't tell you is basically Steve went to the war first, and Steve appeared in all his military gear, including his muddy boots and puttees, he appeared before his brother back home, and it was at that point that his brother knew that he'd died. And then he signed up, and then later in this account, which I just read out, he's actually seen him again, and he's basically saved his life.
Right. So Will knew that Steve had already died.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense.
I know, I
then.
left that bit out for like a bit of a twist.
That was a bit of a twist. I was wondering why he was like, why is Steve here? Okay. So what's a putty?
I believe the putty is the wraps that go around the boots and the lower legs of the soldiers. You'd have seen it in any World War One films.
Right. Yes, you're right. Putties, strips of cloth, which were worn wrapped around the lower leg from the ankle up to below the knee to provide ankle support and prevent debris and water from entering the boots or pants.
There you go. Do I get a bonus point for that?
You do get a
Oh,
bonus
thank you. I
point
like
for that.
a bonus point.
Do you like that story then?
I do. I really like it. I mean, it's a nice story that he's looking after his younger brother. He might have appeared to him sort of initially to say goodbye, and that might have accidentally caused him to actually sign up as well. So maybe he felt slightly responsible and wanted to look after his brother when he joined up.
Yeah, sounds like he was looking out for him.
Yeah, it's a nice story. One. Yeah. It was at this point, looking into ghosts of World War One, that my research kind of took me down a bit of a rabbit hole to somewhere I wasn't expecting to go. So I'll just tell the story and you'll see why. Picture the scene. It's spring 1917. You're in your Fokker fighter aircraft. It's noisy, wind's blowing by you. Below you is Belgium. Looking out of your tiny cockpit, you see a matching plane at your wingtip. The renowned fighter ace Manfred von Richthofen, better known as the Red Baron. You're a pilot called Peter Watzrig, and what you are about to witness is most bizarre. A large silver flying disc with orange flashing lights. The thing was maybe 40 metres, 136 feet in diameter, and looked just like traditional saucer people would go on to see for decades. This appeared below them. The Red Baron instantly went into attack mode. He began firing on the UFO, and it went down, crashing into the woods, mowing down tree limbs on its way down. Circling the wreckage, they saw two bald humanoid creatures exit the vessel and scurry into the woods. The Baron and Watzrig gave a full report of the incident back at the HQ, and were told never to mention it again. Watzrig waited over 80 years. At the age of 105, he finally spoke of the incident. He said, "There's no doubt in my mind that was no reconnaissance plane the Baron shot down. That was some kind of spacecraft from another planet. And those little guys who ran off into the woods were not Americans. They were space aliens of some kind. You know, I sometimes sit and wonder whatever became of those little guys anyway." What do you make of that one then? It's quite a far out story, isn't it?
The Red Baron, renowned fighter pilot, shot down some aliens. That's what you're saying?
One lot.
Oh, just one lot of aliens. Yeah. Sorry.
Just the one alien shit. 80 other confirmed kills, though.
Right.
So
and an alien.
Yep.
Okay, right. I don't know much about Red Baron. When I was younger, I did hear a really good song. It's a novelty song called Snoopy versus the Red Baron by a group called the Royal Guardsmen. That's all I know about the Red Baron. I don't think it said anything about shooting down an alien in the song, but there you go. So the Red Baron then, he was an ace?
Yeah, he was more than an ace. An ace is 5 kills, confirmed kills. So at 80, he was like the best pilot around.
So only 5 makes you an ace.
It does, but I mean, the chances of surviving long enough to get 5 kills are quite low.
That'd be really good to get 80.
Yeah, good enough. Good enough to shoot down ET. That's how good you got to be.
So it was a dangerous job then. I wonder if they wore putties as well.
I think in some pictures I've seen, they are wearing them, yeah.
Okay, so this person who reported this story, who told the story, he told this story when he was how old?
105, I think it was.
So this was 80 odd years after the event.
It was, yeah.
And we're sure he was remembering it correctly. He's not.
How can you ever be sure with memory?
So he might have watched a film.
Yeah, he might have got confused, who knows, but he stands by it, and they say they reported it, so you never know, there might be a record of it somewhere written down.
I'd love to know if there is an actual record of this.
Yeah, thing is, a lot of records and things would have been lost probably during the Second World War, so even if this was written on a bit of paper at some point, with the mass bombings and burning of cities that went on, chances are any paper documents may have gone up in smoke.
Even something about him shooting down an alien.
It might have, yeah.
I'm sure that'd be in a vault somewhere, surely.
Oh, it makes you wonder what happened to the remains of the ship.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what else he shot down. Did he go after Sasquatch as well?
No, I don't think so. Sasquatch is probably his co-pilot, his tail gunner.
Yeah.
Anyway, you've got some stories for us.
I do, yes. So I was looking up, because I mainly talk about dogs and things. I was looking up some connection between ghosts and dogs, and there are a number of ghostly black dog stories in mythology and folklore all around the world. You've probably heard of the chupacabra.
Yep, I've heard of that. Mexico, is that?
I believe so, yes. Black shuck.
Okay.
There's the Hounds of Dartmoor, which was the inspiration for Hound of the Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Anubis, the Egyptian god of funerary rites, if I can say that correctly. There are others as well, Barghest and things like that. Normally, these black dogs ghost stories are associated with bad omens. They're seen as harbingers of death or hellhounds with malevolent intent. But some are also regarded as great protectors. So there are some stories about good black ghost dogs. There is one legend called the Black Dog of Swancliffe in Oxfordshire. Now, this story appeared in a book called The Story of My Life, Volume 4, by Augustus J.C. Hare from 1900, published in London. And this is the fourth volume of his life. So he obviously had an amazing long life with lots of stuff happening. This particular story was recounted to him by a friend of his who had heard it from a friend of his.
Oh, okay. So it's a bit of a Chinese whisper kind of thing going on.
Yeah. So although this was a book of this guy's life, he also incorporated other people's stories as well. So the legend is called The Black Dog of Swancliffe, Oxfordshire. The story goes, in the 1800s, a man by the name of Johnny Greenwood was riding through the woods on a business trip when he saw a black dog following him, running along beside him on his horse. The dog reportedly stayed by his side and kept pace with his horse until he emerged out from the trees, and then the dog promptly disappeared. Mr. Greenwood, later on that day, on conclusion of his business, rode back home, and again, upon entering the woods, he was met by this black dog once again and escorted back through the woods, and again disappearing when Johnny left the woods behind him. Now, this is a strange enough story in itself, as there were no visible signs of a dog being around when Johnny Greenwood stopped his horse to investigate. He couldn't find any paw prints or anything like that on the road. But the most unsettling part of this story came to light several years later, when two prisoners in York jail confessed to have been lying in wait in the dark woods for Mr. Greenwood on that fateful day, with the intention of robbing and murdering him. But their evil plans were only thwarted by the presence of a large black dog accompanying him, which they deemed too much for their courage to allow, and so they abandoned their plans.
Okay.
What do you think of that?
I think it's just a big towel, personally.
Big tail.
Yeah.
He was a big black dog, so they probably had a big tail.
Why would the prisoners confess?
Apparently they confessed to a priest.
Right.
I'm not 100% sure if they were going to be put to death, but maybe they confessed their sins.
Written proof of this confession somewhere?
Not that I can find, but this story was recounted by Johnny Greenwood to his friend called Mr. Wharton, who was also a friend to Augustus Hare, and apparently he met him in a place and told him this story. Cliff, I think he said it was called.
Probably a tavern.
And then Mr. Hare wrote it in his book.
Do you not think that it's more likely that everyone's added a little bit of the story whilst they're having a drink and it's got kind of this almost mythical?
Yeah, there are discrepancies in this story.
Colour me shocked.
There is no such place as Swancliffe in Oxfordshire, but there is a place called Swancliffe in County Durham, which isn't too far from York. So Oxfordshire to York is 186 miles. County Durham to York is 71 miles. So it makes a bit more sense. The prisoners were in a jail in York. It's a bit closer than somewhere.
It's a good story, but if they can't even get the name of the place correct, it does make me think it's not very valid.
Well, it's a legend, isn't it? And all of them have things you could pull apart, I suppose. But I just thought that was an unusual.
It's a different one.
Because he's a good boy.
And it's different to hear a good story.
Normally, the black hellhounds, ghosts of black dogs and things like that are normally seen as evil, monstrous things. But that was a nice dog.
I can understand why people would see big dog spirits, because Britain, particularly, used to be covered in wolves, and we hunted them all to extinction. We used to have wolves in this country. And there are no wolves anymore. So if you're going to have ghosts, why not ghost wolves?
That's true. So that was a story about a good boy. black dog. The next one I found is a bit more of a malevolent spectre, one of many, but the one that caught my eye was this one, and he was known as the Black Dog of Newgate. This story recounts that during a famine in the reign of King Henry III in England, a scholar was incarcerated in Newgate prison who had the reputation of being a sorcerer or a warlock who had, according to the records, done much hurt to the king's subjects with his charms and devilish witchcraft. The famine was so severe and the conditions so bad during this terrible period that the prisoners had already resorted to cannibalism. And soon after his arrival, they killed and consumed him, as he was too weak to physically defend himself. Shortly after this crime was committed, the inmates guilty of his death reportedly began seeing the spectre of a monstrous black dog walking up and down the prison, which they were convinced was the sorcerer's spirit returning to avenge himself upon his murderers. It reportedly killed and consumed those responsible one by one, until the last survivors, driven mad by fear, broke out of the jail and escaped. The creature is supposed to have pursued the escapees wherever they went or tried to hide until it had avenged himself upon them all. To this day, visitors to nearby Amen Court report seeing the black dog's ghost slithering along the walls and dragging its feet in a shapeless form, giving off a nasty odour. What do you think of that one?
Don't really believe in sorcery, so it's a bit hard for me to believe in.
Ghost dog, he'd been a shapeshifter, turned himself into a dog when he
Why
died.
didn't he do that to defend himself?
Because he was weak. He had to save his strength to turn into a ghost dog. I'm not sure. But again, there are
Where was this
discrepancies.
written down? Where was this account kept, or has this been passed down verbally through generations?
Well, the earliest account of this story dates back to 1596 from a prison inmate called Luke Hatton, who wrote a book called The Discovery of a London Monster called The Black Dog of Newgate, profitable for all readers to take heed by. However, King Henry III's reign was 1216 to 1272, and this book came out in 1596. It was about 300 years later. So this is an anecdotal story or based on myth. It's not first-hand story.
Again, it's been a story that's been passed down for generations.
Yeah.
Probably just verbally.
Probably, yeah.
So could it be that, for example, maybe they ate this poor prisoner, this old boy who got chucked in there, and then maybe the guards set a dog on these people that ate them? It'd be something like that, and then it's been retold and twisted to be a ghost dog and revenge from the old man.
Probably. I mean, they
People
were
probably-
half-starved. Yeah, it was a horrible time. People were half-starved anyway. They would have been driven mad through starvation and probably lack of warmth and everything else that we need, our basic needs. So they were probably half mad. But the thing is, there are no other ghosts of black dogs that have been reported at Newgate Jail. And the shadowy figure that's seen at nearby Amen Court is more of a black shape rather than a dog shape. So Amen Court has a grey stone rear wall that used to be a part of Newgate Prison. So the proximity is quite close, so it could be related to that.
So where does the phrase black as a Newgate's knocker come from then?
So the expression as black as Newgate's knocker refers to the heavy iron knocker on the gate of Newgate Prison, which was in London. So the belief is that it's a simile, really, to indicate blackness or thoughts of darkness. You also have things like as black as a crow, as black as hell, as black as death. So it's just anything that conjures up thoughts of darkness, because Newgate Jail was a very grim and foreboding place. So it just kind of comes from there, really. Public executions took place outside Newgate, and it isn't surprising that it became synonymous with dark deeds. The knocker itself was probably singled out because of the alliteration with Newgate rather than any special property. Although, as can be seen from the accompanying picture of the actual knocker from the door of the jail, it is indeed an uncompromising black cast iron affair, bearing in mind that given the many knockers that the prison must have had over the centuries, it is safer to say this is a picture of a Newgate knocker rather than the Newgate knocker.
Do we know if the original knocker, do we know if it had a dog on it? Because I'm thinking maybe it's more black dog was part of the knocker and people were taken into the prison and they were consumed by the dog than the knocker.
I don't know. Nothing was mentioned of a knocker in this story.
I know, but I'm just saying, is that where it might have come from?
No. No, because it's to do with the dog.
Okay, we've gone down a bit of a...
Down a rabbit hole there, yeah.
But we did get to say knocker several times.
Yes. How many times did Nicky manage to say knocker throughout this episode? Got one more ghost story to let you know about. This one is from Japanese mythology, and it's called a Sunekosuri, known as a shin rubber. They normally take the form of small dogs, and they're known as playful poltergeists. And these little dogs like rubbing up against humans and tripping them over. Now, people aren't sure if they do this by accident, if they're doing it on purpose, or if they just want to get some cuddles and they're trying to get your attention, so you're not allowed to get angry at them. But they are called the Sunekosuri, the shin rubbers, and they are in Japan.
I have questions.
Okay.
So, is this people who have lost dogs claiming it's their little dog? Or is it just a phenomenon that people trip up and they're blaming it on something? Or is it something else?
I think it's a real phenomenon, poltergeist dog, that just likes being playful.
How do they know it's a
tripping
dog?
people up.
How do they know it's not a cat?
They could be a cat. They're known as little dogs. It says they take the form of little dogs. This is from TokyoWeekender.com. This is where I got this story from. It says they take the form of small dogs and are known as the Sunekosuri.
Okay. All I'm saying is, as long as it's not actual people just tripping up and they are genuinely supposedly feeling something around their legs, yeah, unless they can see it or it's barking, how do they know it's a dog? It could be a small monkey. It could be any animal. It could be even a human spirit grabbing their legs. How do they know it's a dog?
I don't know. It just says it takes the form of a small dog. They must have been seen by people for them to say it's taken the form of a small dog. I think it's quite a nice little thing with this little dog. A bit like Rosie likes running around between her. We know she just wants a cuddle, but sometimes we do manage to trip over her.
It just feels a bit like when people have goblins in their mythology or naughty imps. It's like this not seen thing doing something.
That's why it's folklore, isn't it? That's why it's legendary and mythological.
Okay, now we have a listener story from Clem. Just before my gran died, she went into a care home. I was about to go on holiday and we both knew it would be the last time I ever saw her. She asked me about my planned holiday and asked me if I'd ever been to New York. I said I hadn't, but I'd love to go one day. My gran was quite well travelled for a time, as my granddad had come from a family of mariners. She said her favourite holiday had been a transatlantic cruise to New York. She asked me if I'd ever been on a cruise, and I said I hadn't, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to, as cruises are expensive trips to go on if you aren't sure about them. A few days later, I was on my holiday and I received a message to say she'd gone. The same week, I randomly got a phone call from a radio station to say I'd won a transatlantic cruise to New York. That could be seen as coincidence alone, but in the same conversation she had raised concerns about my youngest sister. She said she was worried she'd never be able to move out of my parents' place. That same week, she was also contacted by the council and was offered a council property. So what do you think of that? Coincidence or something more?
Wow, what a story. That's brilliant. There's too many coincidences in that from that one conversation to just be random. I mean, to win a transatlantic cruise after you had a conversation about that. And then for her sister to be offered other accommodation. No, it's really, I've got chills in that one. That was a really good one.
I'd like to think it's something, ghostly happening there, like Nan sorting stuff out from the afterlife. It'd be a nice idea. Although you could also add it could be like just numbers. Someone statistically is going to have that incident, aren't they, I suppose?
Say that. Statistically, one of those things happening it's quite far-fetched, but it could happen. But two things that bear out from this same conversation that she had with her nan. I don't know. I think there's something to that. That's a really good story.
And if people would like to send stories in to be shared, have you got the contact details you'd like to share with people?
Yeah. If anyone has any submissions they want to send in to us, we will try and get through them all. The email address is spirithounds@yahoo.com. Send through any stories that you have, any strange occurrences, like Clem's story that we had, anything to do with any dog training tips that you might want, any ghostly occurrences that have happened to you.
If you shot down a UFO, let us know.
Yeah, anything like that. If you're anything like the Big Baron, please let us know. Okay, so now we are on to the dog training section of the episode. And today I thought we'd talk a little bit about impulse control and one item that we tend to use to try and teach some impulse control techniques to our clients' dogs. So what is impulse control? Well, some dogs find it quite hard to cope with their emotions and keep them under control. So a dog with poor impulse control finds it hard to stay focused and can be easily frustrated. Dogs are opportunists and they will try to do what they wish to do in that particular moment, such as grabbing food, known as counter surfing, running out of the door whenever it's opened, pulling on the lead, chasing a cat across the road, that type of thing. So we need to teach them the art of delayed gratification by learning how to wait, have patience, control their instincts. There are many types of impulse control techniques. Things that we teach are sit and stay, down, leave it, drop it, even touch, which is also known as target training. There is an item that we tend to use and we tend to recommend to our training clients called a flirt pole, which is not what you're thinking. It's a great game for dogs, especially those that have got a high prey drive. Essentially, it's a stick with a rope attached to it and a toy attached to the end, which is also known as the lure.
It is a bit like fishing rod. That's the best way to describe it.
Fishing rod things that you play with cats with, but
Bigger-
just on
bigger
a
version.
just a big yeah. You can get them anywhere. You can make them. You can attach a rope to a stick and attach the dog's favourite toy to the end of it. There are versions available from pet shops, etc. Ideally, if you can get one that's got a blue or yellow toy on the end of it, it just makes it a bit easier for the dog to see. So what you do when you're using the flirt pole, you get the dog to sit and stay or wait, and then you would hold the toy in your hand and slowly drop it to the floor. Now do not let the dog move or jump for the toy until you release him. So you have to make the dog sit and stay. You would then release the dog by saying, well then get it. And then you start swinging the toy around, waggle it about, tease them with it, back and forth on the floor, anything like that to make the dog run around, chase the toy. No more than a minute though. Any longer than that can cause the dog to get a bit frustrated, and then let them get it. So actually let the dog catch the toy so it releases any feelings of frustration. Don't let them destroy the toy. Give them a few moments to play with it and enjoy the fact that they've caught this toy. Don't pull it out of their mouth or anything like that. Let them catch it and enjoy playing with it for a few seconds. Then, once they've got it and they're quite happy, you can say drop it and then leave it. And the dog has to drop the toy, sit back and leave it while you retrieve it, take the toy away, and then reward the dog with a treat, slowly picking up the toy end and taking it away. Then you repeat the whole process. If you do this 5-6 times, it's a great way to tire your dog out, and you're reinforcing those commands over and over and over again, and the dog's learning through fun. He's actually having a great time and a great game with this. So it's a great way to learn several impulse control techniques in one go. So they have to learn to sit and stay or wait. They're not allowed to move until you release them. Then once they've got the toy, they have to drop it and they have to leave it, not try and grab it again when you try to pick it up. So they're learning all these impulse control techniques. They have to stop and focus on the commands in order to get a treat at the end of it. They're expelling huge bursts of energy, and it's very mentally stimulating too. So this is a great idea.
Okay. It's important that people are going to have to learn to teach their dog sit, stay, drop it, leave it.
Yeah, well, say you've got a puppy and you're trying to teach them all these impulse control techniques. It's a good way to teach them through play, because you're not just sitting there boringly trying to get them to drop the glasses or the shoe or turning it into a game. You're actually teaching them through fun. And then when you actually come into a real life situation, like the dog's grabbed your glasses or the remote control, they have then learnt drop it, and leaving it means that they'll get something of equal or higher value, something quite high value like chicken or sausage or some kind of treat, something that's better than the thing that they've actually grabbed. Because normally 9 times out of 10 they've only grabbed something because they want to turn it into a game of catch me, and they want you to chase after them and turn that into a game.
Is there a danger of them chaining that though? So they'll be in the house and go, I'll grab the slippers because they always give me a bit of food or a better toy if I grab the slipper.
Yes, some dogs are quite canny and they will undertake this behaviour called chaining it, which is when they, like you say, they learn, if I do this thing, I then get this great reward, and they'll redo it thinking they'll get it all the time. What you can do, when your dog knows the command and he knows drop it means drop it out of his mouth, leave it means step away, look away from it, don't jump on it again. Once you know he knows that, your rate of reinforcement when you give a treat, you can change from 100% of the time giving him a treat every single time he drops the item to maybe every 3rd time he drops the item.
I love the way we're presuming the naughty dogs are he.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, so the rate of reinforcement, you can drop it from 100% to give them a treat every 3rd time, then maybe every 5th time, every 7th time. So then you're gradually phasing out giving a treat all the time. For any of our listeners watching this on YouTube, I'm going to add a video that we have of a dog called Brian, and we actually practiced the flirt pole with him. So we've got a video of Brian working with the flirt pole, which will demonstrate how to actually use this item. So we'll put that on our YouTube version of this episode, so you'll be able to actually see the item in action and watch Brian interacting with it.
Got it. Good boy. Get it. Come on, Brian. Get it. Good boy. Come on. Yes. Good boy. Get it. Come on, Brian. Yes. Good. Get it. Good boy. Brian, drop it. Yes. Drop it. Good boy. Leave it. Good boy. Good, Brian. Yes. Good boy. Go find it. Good boy. Good boy. Okay, Brian, sit. Good. Stay. 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 Good. Stay. Got it. Get it. Oh, good boy. Get it. Come on. Get it. Good boy. Right. Come on. Get it. Good boy. Get it. Get it. Get it. Good boy. Get it. Yes. Good boy. Drop it. Yes. Good boy. Good boy.
Well, that's about it for this episode, and we want to thank you for listening. If you could take time out, if you enjoy what we do, to rate us wherever you listen to us, if it's giving us stars, giving us a review, giving us a thumbs up, we'd really appreciate it. We'd also like to say that you can contact us at spirithounds@yahoo.com. You can send in your stories of paranormal things, any questions you might have for us, any topics you'd like us to cover in the future, as well as any sort of training things related to dogs you'd like to know. We will try and reply or include them all at some point in future podcasts.
That's right, yeah. You can check us out as well on our YouTube channel, which is called Spirit Hounds. You can check out our Facebook page, which is Spirit Hounds Podcast. Like Nicky said, if you want to book any training, go to www.storepaws.co.uk. If you're local to us in Essex, we can do one-to-one training sessions. If not, we can book online virtual training sessions.
We'd also like to say a special thank you to Clem for giving a story in that we've read out today.
Yeah, that was a really good story. Thank you, Clem.
And we encourage anyone else with any stories to write in. We will try and get through them all, and we will try to include them all at some point in future episodes.
Yes, please do get in touch. No story is too short or too long.
Or too spooky.
Or too spooky. We don't get scared. And we'd like to say Happy New Year and speak to you next time.
Bye.
Spirit